Cool. So, hi everyone. My name is KJ Wong, and today I'll be talking to you guys about mastering the psychology of sales. So it really depends on which industry you're in. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, if you have your sales skill with you, you should have the ability to persuade your customers or anyone around you to do what you want them to do. Now, having said that, this skill of sales skills and things like that, I'm only focusing on the goodness of what selling can do, not the evil stuff, okay? So selling is about helping other people and find the right solution for them to overcome some of the challenges that they have. Everyone has needs. The key thing is, as a salesperson, you're responsible to ensure that you're able to solve the problem for them. Okay, I'm KJ Wong. As you can see, there is a QR code right there. Now, if you actually use your phone and scan that, what you'll do, it will direct you to my LinkedIn account, and you can see my email if you want to get in contact with me. Now, on there's also my website. So if you would like to gain access to my sales library, I have about close to 700 sales video in there, in very short video to talk about sales and teach you about sales. And at the same time, they're also on LinkedIn as well. I also have 30 blogs in there in the sales library. So please subscribe to that. You will learn a lot in there, even though you may not want to actually hire a coach or anything like that, but certainly gaining access to all these resources, which is free, will allow you to have at least a very strong understanding of what good selling looks like. Cool. Let's move on to that. Oops. Why is that not working? Just bear with me. Sorry about that. Cool. All right. So let's talk about the definition of selling. There is a negative perception on selling, which is really unfortunate, because the true definition of selling, if you write this down, it is an exchange for one thing for another thing that is mutually beneficial to each other. Now, if you actually just write this down, right, mutually beneficial, right, and of value to each other as well, where is it that people hate the word selling? I don't understand it. I'm a sales coach. I'm a bit biased, but until today, I still don't understand why people hate that word and why salespeople get that wrong at the same time. And the reason why potentially people are not happy with salespeople and hate salespeople is because of the fault of the salespeople as well as the fault of the people receiving that. And they have a bitter taste in their mouth about when they're being sold to. So that is the true definition of selling. And I just hope that you guys who are here today would actually understand that this is what real selling is. Anything outside that is not, okay? In this workshop, I just don't really like to constantly me talking. I would love you guys to send questions in during the presentation so that I can answer them and be a lot more specific. We have Q&A at the end as well. However, if there are anything or any questions that you have or you raise during the presentation, I will answer them as I go. Okay, so when it comes to selling requires you to understand the psychology of our buyers and other people. And there are many reasons why people buy it, going from physiological, that's the survival level, all the way to self-actualization of why they buy certain things. For example, when it comes to things like iWatch, everyone can wear a watch for you can buy them for $10 if you want to, but for whatever reason it is, you notice that certain people just spend a lot of money. This is I think it's like $500, but people who buy Rolexes and things like that, you start to wonder, why are you buying that? Well, the psychology behind those things is because it's self-actualizing. It makes them feel great. So going along this array, there are many reasons why people buy. As a salesperson, our job is to understand that, okay? When you're talking to anyone, whether it's friends, you're trying to persuade your friends, all the way to trying to persuade your customer to work with you, you need to understand where do they belong and the meaning behind how they perceive you along this triangle. And by the way, this is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Okay, you can get that anywhere on Google when you Google it. So the question is always going to be, why do you want to learn to sell? I think a better question when I thought about writing this question is, why do you want to learn how to persuade other people? Because I think if you remove the word selling, selling is a life, sales skill is a life skill. So when you sell something to someone, like you always think that there's a money mortgage transaction, which is really wrong. Not all transactions involve money. It could be favors, it could be relationship, it could be anything. But I think we need to have get the opportunity to learn how to sell or persuade other people, because it is to get what you want in life. That's what it is all about at the end of the day. Unfortunately, as you know, and everyone doesn't like selling, it's because selling is very difficult. And there are many reasons for that, especially those reasons that I highlighted earlier. It is certainly a skill, and for those people who believe, I guess that feel the upset that they're not where they are at in their life professionally or personally. A lot of that, unfortunately, is not luck. A lot of that, unfortunately, is our inability to get what we want. Our inability to actually convince someone to give us what we want, whether it is getting a job, whether it's actually getting into a relationship. And this summit here is a great summit to learn about all those things. And at the end of the day, selling, underneath all that, the word selling is underneath all the coaches work and presentation. They just don't mention the word selling, but at the end of the day, that is really the essence of what everyone coaches here. So in reality, so how do we engage our clients? To me, to answer this question, it's very simple. Are you actually interested in the customer in the first place? If you are not interested in them, well, you know what? It is really hard to sell. Now, I'll give you an example as a personal example rather than professional. If you like a girl, you want to date, for example, and if you're not interested in that person, do you think that person wants to actually, date you? And there are also ways to actually show your interest, right? There are ways there's certain things that you do. Well, when it comes to selling, it's exactly the same thing. If you're interested in the client, there are certain things that you do to show that you're interested in the client. And in the principle that I'm actually talking about today, it is about how we engage with our client using simple steps and kind of things that you can easily work with, so that you can easily engage your client. The key thing out of all that, before you even go through all these steps, is actually you need to be genuinely interested. So the question that you need to ask yourself right now is this: if you're in the world of selling and you're selling and you're building your business, how interested are you to the person that you recently spoken to, who happens to be a prospect? How much interest did you show in who they are, why they do what they do? If you can't answer those two questions, it means that you're really not interested in the person. And that is the source of good selling, right? Source of good selling is just that. You have to be interested in your client. And the second part of that is genuine. You need to be genuinely interested in your client. Otherwise, forget about going out and become a salesperson. At the end of the day, you won't be able to convince anyone because you're not interested in anyone. So that is really black and white to me. Okay, so the truth is this, a lot of people, when they see selling, they talk about product or services, right? There's always something tangible. The reality is something that a lot of entrepreneurs miss. A lot of entrepreneurs miss the fact that you're actually selling yourself first. When you're approaching anyone, you need to come across as someone that's firstly interested in your client, of course. And secondly, you need to be portraying that someone you can be trusted. And how do you become a trusted advisor at the end is, of course, your knowledge on certain things, especially your industry and your product, and also the challenges your client has, right? So you as a person is what allows someone else to trust you. And technically, a lot of the things that happens, or repeat selling and things like that, especially in the B2B environment, a lot of that is they choose you because they trust you, right? And there are a lot of cases, even in my career, if I move from one company to another company, in most cases, you have heard about this as well. The client moves with the rep because they trust the rep, not the company. Even though the company has a brand behind it, I get that, like Nike and all that. I get that. But in a B2B environment, very often you hear a story about a rep in that organization moves to another organization, and all those customers goes with them. And that is because these reps were able to sell themselves first. Okay, and that needs to be very clear. So, how do you help anyone when they're not listening? Now that's interesting because I have trained a lot of entrepreneurs, and I belong to a group called Meetup, a meetup group called Silicon Beach Off. Okay, there are about 16,000 entrepreneurs in there. Most of them are generally the IT SaaS space. Okay, so it is really interesting. All these is a gig economy, so these guys are coders and all that. But when they come down to selling their product, they fail. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because they all want to help their customers. But when you actually put them in front of a prospect or anyone who's interested, they fail. You know why? They are so in tune and so passionate about their product, they actually forgot to listen to the person in front of them, what they actually want to hear. They just pitch. And there has been a huge kind of like market in Australia for entrepreneurs to just perfect your pitch. But unfortunately, the pitch is like it's a blank bullet, because you keep on missing your target, because the stuff that you talk about is not relevant to your audience, to your prospect, and then they shut off. So that's why I say, how do you help anyone when they're not listening? So part of learning how to sell is to work out how to persuade someone, and firstly, how to help them listen to you. And that's a trick to that. Okay, before we get into that, a week ago, Andrea, we spoke about introverts, ambiverts, and extroverts. So by understanding where you're at you have skill in all that. You actually move around whether you're introvert or extrovert. Okay, a lot of you guys are probably only familiar with introverts and extroverts, but you have never come across something called the ambivert. The people or the sales reps that I believe are the best one, in my experience, after recruiting over and interviewing over maybe 500 candidates, sales candidates for during my sales management days, as well as recruiting more than about 50, 60 sales reps over my tenure. And now I'm still doing it for my clients. I found that the ambiverts and introverts are generally the best sellers. The extrovert talks too much. I usually just weed them out because they are boring their customers, and they tend not to be as interested compared to the people who are introverts and ambiverts, because their default mannerism in a sales conversation is listening. And that is what I want. And that is the essence of how to engage your client. You need to learn to listen. Now, if you go to Google and you type hearing, listening, and active listening, all three is a kind of a little curve, and each of them means different things. The best salespeople are the best at something called active listening, and I'll describe that a bit later. Having said all that, before I move on with this slide, people evolve, okay? So even though if you're an extrovert, I know some really great extrovert salespeople, because they are shifting towards ambivert. So everyone's trying to move towards the middle as they become more and more experienced and better at getting better at selling. That's how they do it. And so just bear in mind that if you find yourself an extrovert, it doesn't mean you can't learn how to sell. You can move with the right training. You can move across that. A lot of my clients tend to be introverts because of what I post on LinkedIn. They all come to me, and I push them towards the ambivert direction, and they're very good at it because the quality of their questions, because they're good at listening, the quality of their question is much higher than what the extroverts can do. And I don't know why that is, but that is my finding. And that is what I just talked about here. Now, let me emphasize on active listening. Active listening, you got the word active. All right. And then there's listening. Listening is just listening. But active listening, even though listening is just listening, you're still quite active because you are now recepting information. But active listening is different. The word active listening. To me, active listening means you have to ask questions. You have to participate in a conversation. That's what active listening is. If you just stay quiet in a sales call, that is really not selling. what great selling is your ability to really understand what the customer is saying, and then you ask further questions to guide the customer eventually towards your product. A lot of people use statements to guide their client to their product, but for me, in my training, I teach my clients to use active listening by asking a lot of questions that will guide them towards your product. And that is the difference between good selling and great selling. All right, that's the difference. I hope you know how to differentiate that. And here comes this slide, statement versus question. When you pitch, it is like watching an ad on TV. You have no interest in your client really, but you're trying to persuade them based on all the stuff that you talk about. You notice I say all the things you talk about. However, in a sales situation where you actually have a customer right in front of you and you have never met them before and they are the prospect, you need to ask questions instead of overly using statements. I'm not saying that you can't use statements. It is relevant during the sales call, but it is only most relevant where your pitch is during a sales call. It's actually at the end, not at the front. And that is where a lot of people make the mistake. They don't understand what that means until they do my course, because when they actually understand how to use questions at the front of their sales call, what they tend to do is when they do pitch, they modify their pitch based on what they have learned using the question they ask. And that gives them massive flexibility to talk to the client and engage with the client a lot deeper than what they're used to in the past. And that is something called the align system, which I'm going to show you later. All right, so everyone has heard about this, open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. I don't really want to go into a lot of details here because that's part of my real course that you pay for. However, having said all that, just bear in mind, you use open-ended questions to open up a conversation or a certain topic, right? It's a very broad sort of question. You can go narrow in it to help the customer, to guide the customer towards what you want. Closed-ended questions are things like yes, no, 1, 2, really short. Now, having said that, a lot of the training that I help my clients tends to help them on the opening side because for some whatever reason it is, they're not very good at it. They're very good at closed-ended, but if you use too much of the closed-ended, it feels like you're an FBI, right? Asking, like you are like a lawyer, that's all you're interested in. However, if you really want to engage your client and ensure that the sales call is flowing in a nice direction, you need to know how to use a combination of open and closed-ended questions and manage that throughout the conversation. And that is how you guide your clients towards what you're offering, and at the same time, engage them much better if you really know how to do it without them feeling interrogated, if you know what I mean. Okay, one of the biggest issue a lot of company has is their failure in understanding what makes them so different. I've asked so many, there are 16,000 entrepreneurs. When I actually talk to them, there's like hundreds of them, right? And every time they tell me about what they do, I always ask them, like, what makes you different from the rest? And 95% of them, especially the SEOs companies, they will say to me, we provide great services. And I kind of question that. I go, okay, well, like, are you saying to me your competitor would tell their client that, by the way, we don't provide great services? Everyone provides or thinks that they provide great services. That's what they do. And they're very used to that. And they use that cliche language to try to attract their clients. But unfortunately, that does not work because everyone provides great services. So when it comes to understanding your business, you need to work out what is it that you do, not forget about the service because that's way too redundant. Something that you actually do that your customer value that your competitors can't do. You have products that you design, everyone buys different things. I got an Apple, someone gets Samsung, they all have slight differences. And each of those differences will have certain advantage, pro and cons. And on top of that, like when you're conversing with your clients, each of them have their specific needs, right? So a Samsung may not be suitable for them, or Apple may not be suitable for them, but having that understanding how to have that conversation and understand what differentiates you from the competitor, you will have a much better chance to convince or persuade your clients to work with you. And that is the reality of it. And this is where it becomes really interesting. Well, like for those who are trying to learn how to sell, like it is clunky, especially when I first started in selling. You know what? I sweat so much that like I was an introvert, and it was such a difficult journey for me, right? And plus my English wasn't very good either, and I have a Malaysian accent on top of that. And so there's a lot of things working against me. However, what I really did worked out is when you actually want to have a great sales call, well, it actually doesn't feel like a sales call. And that is the beauty of being great at selling, in that you're technically having a conversation with the client. And if you recall all the conversation that you have with your friends, people that you care about, that is pretty much how it feels like. And the client doesn't ever feel being sold to, because no one likes sold to, but they're more than willing to share what is important to them when they converse with you. And that is the difference between someone who just started how to sell and someone who has a lot of experience how to sell. Look, you know, like you can learn from me and you can learn from the best guys in the world of how to sell, you know, but at the end of the day, if you just grab the theory and just kind of like shelve it, no one can help you how to sell. You only can learn by repetition. You need to go out there and learn this stuff. Okay, you may be shy talking to clients or prospects, right? I get all that. However, if you want to go stepwise, well, hire a coach, and they usually use something called role play to help you through this transition. Or if you can't afford a coach, I really strongly you guys try to sell anything, whether it's hobby, a mouse, a watch, whatever it is, or something that you're passionate about, to your friends, right? And tell them, hey, I want to practice how to sell. Can you please help me and become my sounding board? And I'm going to try to sell this to you, and please practice with me. You know, we can practice selling every day, every hour if we choose to. I think what really stops us is that courage, and you feel very embarrassed about trying to sell, but you shouldn't be. If you actually hang on to the definition that I gave you from the start and write that down and kind of like burn it onto your cortex, I think you will change your mindset about what selling really truly is. Okay, so you've got to practice this art. Now, when I recruit salespeople, I look at 4 areas: sales skill, account knowledge, and product knowledge. So if any of you guys are planning to scale, this is how I recruit. I look at those 3 areas in the corner of the triangle. Now, the one thing that I noticed based on all my years of recruitment is it makes those 3 on the outside makes no difference to success or failure, if there is no passion. If the sales rep is burnt out, if the sales rep don't care anymore, the sales rep doesn't believe in what they're selling. When they actually do that, all those sales skill, product knowledge, and account knowledge just go out the door because there's nowhere they can sell that. So that is what I really look for when I recruit. Without going too deep in that, at the end of the day, especially in a B2B environment, if you're able to improve the customer's competitive advantage, that is how you become the trusted advisor of your client, right? Because if you think about it, you got clients, right? Your clients have clients, and their clients have clients. It's like a chain. It's called a value chain, right? So you need to help your client. If you're a consultant or your business, whatever they buy, you need to understand how is this product or services is going to be able to help the customer enhance their competitive edge against their competitors. And that is how you become a trusted advisor. If you can do that in your business, I can help you with that, then we can go forward from there. These are some of the sales skills that I'm not going to touch on today. If you quickly scan all those, the one thing I want to emphasize is the empathy, composure. These 2 are very important. And then if you want to be the best salesperson in the world, your humanity needs to stay with you. The worst thing you want is you become arrogant when you earn a shitload of money, a lot of money, and then become really arrogant. Your customers will feel that, and that is not the way to sell successfully for over time. You have to remain human, and your customer will feel it. Remember, I talked about a sales conversation shouldn't sound like sales conversation. I call that conversationability. So these are all the 8 areas that you should actually focus on if you really want to improve your sales skill. Of course, active listening is important. And small talk really, gets everything juicing. And everything, all those below, you notice that they're all, each and every one of them takes time to learn, because it takes a lot of courage at the end of the day to kind of like come out of your box, so to speak, especially when you're an introvert. So this is a system. If you're learning from Awake by 5 a.m., which is my company, I will be teaching you this technique. It's called the align technique, and each of them represents something. So appreciate the opportunity, lay out a plan before you see your customers. And I'm very strong in LinkedIn. Please, if you are not using LinkedIn right now, please do. All the information of the customers are there. They are very generous with that. And then you have to pass down your introduction. It's almost like partial of your pitch, but not your complete pitch. And then you learn, this is where the hardest part of the exercise is. You learn how to investigate your customers' people's needs. You need to learn how to remove layers in there to really understand what takes them, really understand their why. And your ability to do that in every sales call makes a huge difference. And then once you have all those information, there's the next stage called guide, which is G. You actually use those information, match it with your solution that you have, kind of mix them all together in the right order. And that is how you actually make the offering to your clients. The better you are at mixing them and gelling them with their needs and challenges, the higher the chance that the customer will be convinced and say, well, that is the solution for me. And then from there, of course, at the end of the day, never walk away without an outcome. You always need an outcome, whether it is actually resulting in a proper sale or whether it is going to be a follow-up from there. At the end of the day, you can't walk away from an opportunity. Whether the customer say yes or no, there's always an outcome. You know for a fact that where you're exactly at the end of the conversation. And that is called the aligned sales call technique. And I just hope that this is a brief introduction to what you'll be learning from me if you talk to me a lot more. And of course, I also focus on helping companies to recruit salespeople. I'm not going to be a recruiter. I'm not a recruiter. I'm actually your pseudo HR manager that will sit beside you to shortlist with you and also interview the client with you. That's what I do. If you don't have a sales process, if you don't have a CRM, that's where I come in. I'm a nerd. I love CRM. I use HubSpot. It is free. And I customize the whole thing to look like Salesforce.com because of my experience in Salesforce.com. If you want to go low, especially you're an entrepreneur and you want to lower your cost, have a chat with me because we can talk about how to set up for you literally at very low cost. So anyway, that's me. And I hope that you have some questions and I'll help you with that.
We have a lot of questions coming in, so we can just try to start because KK has also wrote a lot of comments. So before we start the live stream, I just would like to read them out. So KK is saying selling plus transfer of ideas from one to another to add value to the recipient. Hence, we are selling every day when we share our ideas.
Correct. Sales skill is a life skill. The moment you wake up, the moment you actually have a shower and get ready to go outside, you are selling yourself that you're worth it.
So he's even adding, I love KK, he's a Toastmaster, so he's even adding some humor to it. So for a car salesman, the idea is a product, a car. For a prime minister, the idea is his vision or policy. For a mother, the idea is her love for the child. For Andrea, is the idea is the amazing benefits of GES. Thank you, KK.
Yes, that's right. I love it, KK. That's exactly what it is. Like everyone has their needs and wants, and everyone's different. And being a salesperson, a great salesperson, is to cater to all those different. You can't be restrictive. Even your sales skill and your selling style needs to be different because your customers are different. And funny thing is, this is what I've learned. Even the same customer that you saw a while, you have to change your behavior because the customer sometimes are in a different mood, right? So if a great salesman are literally like plasticine, it's flexible. Their style and the way they approach is always different, catering to their audience. And that is what great salespeople are.
Thank you. And he's saying one more sentence. Someone once said, if there is no more selling in this world, everything will come to standstill. Super. So let's go to the questions. If differentiating well or value, unique selling point. Okay, KK, you have to explain it to me. Is differentiating value a unique selling point?
Just now, KJ mentioned about differentiating value. So I'm just checking, does that equal to unique selling point?
Yes, it's the same thing. And there are many words around all this stuff. And there's differentiating value, competitive advantage, unique proposition, UPS, and all those things, they're all the same thing. At the end of the day, it is all about what makes you stand out from the crowd.
Thank you very much, KK. And then we have Piero here. What is your top tip to create a selling connection?
What do you mean by that, selling connection?
Piero, you have to explain now.
Hey, KJ, my brother, how are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Obviously, because it's an area that we're both passionate about, I thought what would be a really good question for the audience, and it's also, I just love to hear other people's, perception, and that is, what's your top tip for creating, the best selling connection? In other words, like, what is your top tip for creating that selling environment when you're selling your USP? What is your top tip?
Okay, so the easiest way to really engage, to understand that and whether you can deliver that UPS, is to understand your audience. I mean, that you got to do that. And I'm not talking about what you think everyone on average kind of like behavior, characteristics, or requirements are. It is about that person right in front of you now. You know how a lot of companies, they talk about creating a persona for your companies and things like that, or the target market, they talk about that. And then they write a lot of stuff around the target market. They have a massive board doing all this, right, to get it right. However, those are useful, don't get me wrong, so that you actually move towards a strategy to cater for those people, because these are your target market, and and you're going to put resources towards those people, right? Now, once you actually get to those people, you have to understand that they're all different. And so what strategy that I really want to encourage everyone here to think about is, don't be too anxious or too too excited to want to tell your client who you are and what you do and what you can offer. All right, don't be too excited for that, because if you get that wrong, the probability is like, even though they were interested, they become disinterested, and that's the risk you take. However, if your strategy in any sales call is, okay, I'm gonna have a clean slate, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spend 60 to 70% of my time in this hour, if that's how long it takes for you, to understand the client. And while the client is talking, your strategy behind your mind is, how am I gonna fit what I offer, right? What I offer right now that is unique, that can somehow click to their requirements. And that is what you should be thinking. However, like what at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say to you guys is, always lead with questions. That is my long-winded answer to your question, and I'm not sure whether I have answered it, but I hope you did.
You nailed it, brother. You nailed it. I love that. Know the audience. Know the client.
Thank you, Piero. Thank you very much. So KK has one more question. In conversation ability, what do you meant by throughout? I'm really always confused with how to pronounce thorough. So I'm speaking English, sorry.
Yes, there are many elements in terms of those intrinsic skills that we have to have when it comes to engaging other people. We are talking about sales here, right? Piero is a coach, right? And he has amazing qualities in himself. The way he behaves and all the mannerism and things like that, it just makes people comfortable to talk to them. And conversation ability is your ability to actually hold a conversation. Good salespeople are able to do that. It's not because they're extroverted or introverted or whatever it is. I know introverts when they are really interested in certain things and want to progress the sales forward, man, they can hold conversation at a level you can't imagine, right? But then you put them into a party, they completely go quiet, right? But when they're in front of a sales situation, they converse very well. And so if you look at all those boxes under the categories of what I presented in my workshop, you will actually notice that there are areas of improvement that all of us, including myself, can improve to have a much better conversation with not just our prospect or customers, but you know what, to your family, to your friends, to strangers on the street. If you can do that, you'll be a much happier person at the end of the day to learn about other people. That's what I love. I love listening to other people's stories. Thank you. I hope I answered that question.
Sorry, KK.
Yes. Thank you, KJ.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys. So I just want to say hi to Elena from Pakistan. She's in the YouTube flow, and I just want to say hi. She's always here with us, and also Karishma is supporting on the YouTube stream. So I would love to ask you a question after we asked everything from the room. Basically, it's about how can you learn to switch between the different roles, like the intro, extro, and ambivert personality? Because I believe it's like something that's a skill to switch in a given good moment to the different types according to your customer or.
Right. Correct. That's where the art of mimicry comes in, and there are books written around the art of mimicry. Like if the client, that's why I say being flexible in your sales skill is important. Anyone who say, or any rep who says to me, oh, this is the way I sell, man, I hate that. It means that you have no potential for growth. For me, like a sales rep, what makes someone great is knowing the fact that how they sell is just temporarily. It needs to change. And if the customer is introverted, they're not very sharing, you know what, you also need to kind of have that same body language with them and trying to match that. And if, depending on the timbre, the loudness and things like, if a customer is very quiet and you shout at them, it is very confounding for an introvert to listen to that, especially if they're your customers. However, if a customer tends to be very kind of like active and kind of like a lot of energy type thing, well, that is where you have to lift your game and your energy level to converse with them as well. It's a bit of a balance as well. Like, sometimes some certain clients are way too loud, right? Way too loud and things like that. Great salespeople, if they understand something called NLP, which I think payroll know that, if you understand NLP, you can actually help the client to lower themselves in terms of the energy level to try to somehow kind of like resonate with you. And that is a skill, a massive skill. And when you're shifting between introvert, extrovert, and ambivert and things like that, well, as you gain more and more experience, you realize that you do that unconsciously. This is where I think the unconscious competence model comes in. If you are a manager, if you're leading a bunch of people, you really need to understand this model. It's a competence model, means that when you're training someone, you need to understand where they're at, and you need to also at the same time coach them in a different level as well. So your leadership style changes depending on where your staff is at, right? So this model applicable to sales as well. Depending on where your clients are at, you need to start to change and bend yourself to match them, to get in sync with them, to really build your rapport as fast as possible. If you can do that, that's what tends to happen.
That's something very interesting. And then the other question is about the strategy. So basically, when you are having a small business, right? Like all of us, we start small first because we are all small and medium enterprises. Then what is the strategy that you do with this free, giving everything for free, building up the funnel? There is everything around us. So how do you just silence this noise and have something nice, even if it's just 3-step strategy, but works?
It is a big question. The question is very simple, but it is a big question, right? And it is a very good question. When you're starting something, the biggest challenge is funding, right? Funding. And if you're doing this full time, certainly trying to grow your business, you don't have a salary with you. But if you have a job, but doing it as a side gig, then you're talking about time, right? So you're balancing everything around it. So it depends where you're at. At the end of the day, right? So when you're putting something together, especially your business, I talked about where your value is. Everyone here has a value because they have lived life, right? You have lived it so far. And so each of you guys have certain value and certain experience in life, and we're all different. And the one thing that I would, in terms of strategy, is actually mindset. That's why this summit is so important for so many people. It's mindset. Pedro is a guy that you guys need to talk to when it comes to mindset. This guy is a freaking rocket. I'm not sure whether he's still on, but I hope that he's hearing this. You got to make sure that your mindset is correct, and that is your most valuable asset. If you get that right, everything else flows. You know, when I was starting my own business, this is my own story. The first thing that I look at is value. My value. You know, what are the 3 values that is very important to me? And then from there, I work out what I'm actually passionate about, because value and passion all kind of counterbalance each other. And then once you work that out, everything just makes sense. Because if you do start your business, then if you drive your business using those values, that is the highest chance for you to be successful at the end of the day. I know that I'm talking cryptic at the moment, but at the end of the day, people who comes to me very often, it ranges from established company of over 200-300 people, right? They got a big sales team, all the way down to entrepreneur or solopreneur. And what I found is that initial passion and value that is missing, that kind of like doesn't allow them to really know where they're going to go with their business. And that's where I come in. You know, at the end of the day, we need to establish that first. And then from there, you then work out how, you know, where you want to go with your business. And you know what? You bring your client with you as well. And that is the path that I would take.
Thank you very much. And the last question, because the people in the room, I think they're loving what you say. So they are saying always to keep your clients at ease. That's coming from Singfong, Piero, such gold. So thank you for sharing. He left in the meantime, but he was supporting you all the way. Then we have educate the client. Selling is only one of the functions of marketing. Develop relationship with the client. And then we have KK, after understanding and clearly identify the needs, wants, desires of the recipient, prospect, look for ways to align with the client and influence rather than persuade the recipient to accept your idea.
Yeah, they're all very valid. And one of the challenges a lot of entrepreneurs have is the how bit. Yeah, these are words. You can paste it on your wall. Great, you know. So, yeah, you can just copy and paste everything on the chat, and on the wall, there are exactly what you need to think about. The question now is like when the person is right in front of you, the question is how do you do that? How do you tick off those boxes when the person is right in front of you? And that takes time, that takes practice. And if you really want to shorten the time, well, you know what? I'm not saying to hire me, but hire a coach. You know, there are so many coaches in the summit. Go and spend some money because you're investing in yourself, right? If we always believe we get, you know, everything for free, then you know what? I'm a sales coach, man. If you're getting everything free from me, then what am I actually teaching you to, you know, to give everything for free? You know, you learn to create a value that your customer wants. And that is the skill. It is a skill, and you need to learn that at the end of the day. I know I'm blunt. I'm sorry about that. But at the end of the day, like, you have to keep food on the table and life on in your house.
Thank you, KJ. I have one more question. So the last question is about personal experience. Like when you are starting the community and you know I'm building the hub and people see how it's growing and we are having the second year with more people, but it's always hard to build the community and keep it up and keep it active. So basically what I'm asking is when you are doing this kind of community setup and you are building a tribe, then what are the things that you can do and you cannot do to keep this community together and to really continue to give them value and then you know level up and just try to convince them that here is a lot of value, so it's worthwhile to, even if it's just a small amount of money, to spend on the community to keep it growing and to commit yourself, like, you know, this 1 cent of exchange, that here is this, even if it's $1, but I will be committed from today.
Yes. It is really interesting, Andrea. Like, you know, my dad told me this, right? My dad told me this. People don't value really anything unless they pay for it. That's what he told me. And it sucked, like it really sucked. And the reason for that, like when there's nothing being given away, people kind of like don't really see it as important to do things. For example, like if my client nowadays, when they pay for the course, they apply it because, geez, you pay a lot of money, so you better apply it. And intrinsically in themselves, they would apply it because they have paid money. That's the logic that people have. The reality is when I was a sales manager, I found that is different. People are paid a wage, right? The employee personally did not fork out the money to learn how to sell. As a result of that, they have a less kind of, I would say, urgency and kind of like I really want to apply what they learn. I'm not saying that all of them does that. I'm just saying that there are less of those people because they didn't pay for it. And going into creating a tribe and things like that, and you're wanting to subscribe to something, it is going to be exactly the same in a very amplified manner. The only way that I can actually answer that correctly is I have started a tribe, right, in the LinkedIn community. The one thing that I'm very consistent of 7 days a week is selling. And what selling is I'm talking about the principle of selling. And those principles that I talk about in its most simplistic manner, because these are real experience that I went through when I was a sales rep. And I put it together into a model that worked for me when I was a sales rep and a sales manager. So when you are trying to use simple language and being consistent with what you're trying to kind of like build within the community, over time, you're gonna grow a very big trusting community, and they actually look upon you as a trusted advisor. And if you actually look at that in a social media sense, and compare that to a normal sales situation in your professional job or businesses, you start to realize there's no difference. The line is starting to blur a lot because people are using social media a lot more than before, compared to the past. So that is why it is very important that you have to be consistent in your message. Please don't talk about cute dogs on LinkedIn. Seriously, people will stop understanding exactly what you're offering, right? The other thing that I also noticed that focus on potentially creating original material, because if you're able to create original material, you're laying bare to your audience who you truly are as a person. And there are a lot of people grabbing, TikTok stuff from someone else and kind of like forward document from another company. To me, you're actually, yeah, that's great. It's nice that you are sharing information. However, the other side I can see, I'm not saying it is definite. The other side I can see is you're not really projecting your expertise when you do that. If you're showing about cute dogs and cute cats and stuff like that, you're definitely not showing your expertise. Definitely not. You're using LinkedIn as a Facebook or a TikTok, and it's fun. I look at it sometimes when I'm bored, but really at the end of the day, I don't even know what to do if you keep on showing me cats, right? What do you actually contribute to LinkedIn, really? And so that is how we build community, from what I understand. I'm not an influencer, guys. I'm not, but this is what I've learned from real influencers. People who have over like 100,000 to 1 million to 2 million like followers, who actually built it from scratch. Some of these people were not popular in the first place. They're not like the Bill Gates, doesn't have that credential behind them to start LinkedIn. These guys went from zero, and that's how they did it. And that's what I've learned from them.
I think that's something very important here for the people in the room too. So KK and Simfong, you are getting some secret information. It's like almost like a private party for you guys. So I think it's very important that you can do this posting. I saw them getting so many comments, so many likes, but that doesn't mean that they can monetize these things, because it just becomes like Facebook, like a really, like 20,000 likes, but then what? No call to action, no connection to your things, what you do. So it's really hard to build up a business from there.
It is. Look, bear in mind, guys, like everyone is on LinkedIn for different reasons. If someone has a lot of followers, a lot of things, and not making money, I'm not going to judge against them, because that's what they want in life. So none of us should judge that, oh, they're wasting their time. They're not. They enjoy that. That is what they do. For me, like on LinkedIn, it is a way for me to build a tribe, right? For me to actually, if they're interesting enough, then I will have a proper conversation with them. I've been on LinkedIn for 3.5 years now. And anyone that I approach in my followers and things like that, every time I actually message them, hey, do you want to catch up? They already know who I am. They already know I'm a sales coach. They already know what I've done. I don't have to go, hey, I'm KJ, I'm a sales coach from away back. I no longer have to have that conversation. It's more towards, hey, I actually want to know a bit about your company because I actually do some research before I approach them. That's the one thing. The second thing is my clients that I actually have, that existing clients, all my clients get leads from me as well. Because I have over, I think, almost 26,000 followers and connections. When I actually see something of interest that I know my client will be interested in, I connect them. I actually have been doing that for the last few years. And so anyone who uses me as a coach, seriously, you get leads from me. And I use my forensic customers in universities, in defense, these are all my clients, my past clients, that I'm able to introduce people at the right time when you need to. And so being a networker on LinkedIn, that's what LinkedIn is about. We forget that. We always think LinkedIn is a way to, make money. No, LinkedIn is networking. That is the purpose of this platform. And don't forget that, don't forget that. And don't be selfish with your connections. If you find that other people you talk to, hey, I think this person and that person will work very well together, connect them. That's what my purpose is. And I've been doing it for 3 years. And I had a lot of joy doing it. I don't get any money from it. And I don't care about that. If that's not what it's all about. And that's me. That's just what I do.
Thank you, KJ. So we are at the end of the session. It was amazing to have you, and we were live all the way, so we are still live on YouTube. Before we close the live, just please share again your connections so that the people can really connect with you and build that connection with you on LinkedIn. So how can they find you? Where can they find you? For what kind of service?
Yes. So my LinkedIn name is KJ and then space Wong. And the company name is Awake by 5 a.m. So that would be the first place you look at. I post every day, so you'll see the link to my website. And in my website, there's a sales library, which has about 30 sales blogs, all categorized into different areas in a typical sales or selling organization. And also at the same time, I house all my LinkedIn videos in the sales video library. So once you subscribe to the library, you see the blog, and at the bottom, you see the videos link. So click onto that link, it'll open up to seriously 700 videos. And it'll take you a few months to go through with them, because that is my book. If you're talking about, did you write a book? That is it. It took me, a lot of hours creating them, and it's all about sales.
Thank you very much. So I'm just pushing the stop live stream now. Thank you very much for watching from YouTube. Elena and Karishma tuning in. Thank you, KK, KG, and Simfong. And in the room, please stay with us for